to go to another country,
Right.
but just your own plot of you never left
Right.
a 5-mile area in
Right.
several directions.
Well, what
Yeah.
we're kind of talking about here is, there's three forms of information, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's the things you know, there's things you don't know, and then the things you don't know that you don't know, right? So we're having this conversation, and we're saying we know that we don't know what the future will be, but we can assume that, you'll go to different planets, different things will happen. But what are the things that we don't know? I don't know if you can ever talk about things that you don't know,
Sure.
right? Because you'd have to know that you don't know something. Like we could say, oh, maybe there's an alien invasion. It comes down, it wipes out half the population, the world restarts. You could say that the way we harness energy and everything becomes so incredibly efficient that there's no more artifacts that are left behind on the Earth, because everything is within a chip that is biodegradable in your brain. So let's say some kind of catastrophe happened, every 10,000 years, you would have humans almost like in a petri dish get to a certain level of advancement, erased. And there's no artifacts remaining, but a few survive. And then 10,000 years, and then erase. 10,000 years, and erase. And every time it attempts to do something, right? We may even be in a petri dish ourselves, and like a neural network that's figuring out data for something else, right? For some larger idea, vision, whatever it might be. So, thinking about, I guess thinking about all these different things that we may not know and how those will affect us. It's the same way that if we were to talk, let's say, end of 2019, not knowing what was coming the following year, everything with COVID, people being locked down, all these things that shifted, different people had opportunities they took advantage of to push themselves further in life. Other people died, right? And, there's such a different spectrum of life within that. But let's talk more about the perspective, right? Because let's say you could make an assumption that a certain proportion of a society needs to have a positive outlook on life, right? There's like that happiness ranking or whatever. What's the happiest? Okay, but I guess, how do you teach somebody to be happy, right? Or to appreciate what's around them? Because if you talk to someone who's not been in that situation, and I think everybody has their ups and downs, there's times when you're like, I don't give a shit that I can order Cat's Deli to my house right now. Like, I'm pissed about this larger thing, right? So, I guess I'm just wondering, like, if there was a way that, is happiness based off of the perspective? Like, are people, if you took two different people, two different islands, and one of them had Instagram and another one had a newspaper that came out every 50 years and just talked about progress, which society would do better? Is it the unhappy? Because if you're going to push yourself forward, right? Like Naval talks about this, like, desire is a contract with yourself to be unhappy for a certain period of time, right? So I want to get a six pack, right? I want to build muscles. So I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to hurt like hell. I'm going to push myself. But then when I look in the mirror at the end of the day, I'm going to say, look at what I've done and what I've accomplished, right? But are you unhappy when you're pushing yourself and you're suffering? I mean, you could probably say that there's a lot of people that enjoy that part of the process, right? Maybe the key is having a society that doesn't look at failing as a failure, but instead looks at failing as like an exploration. Like, you go up to whatever sex you're attracted to and you say something and it totally freaks them out. That is a failure. But if you're hopefully reasonable, you'll realize that doing that doesn't elicit a positive reaction, right? So you learn through the reactions of people, right? But then the same way, let's say you have someone who's born that's more positive, but they're put in a world that is maybe more negative,
Mm-hmm.
eventually the people you surround yourself, you're going to kind of match them. Maybe I think most people gravitate, they say like the people you surround yourself with
Mm-hmm.
are kind of tell the story of who you are.
Yeah.
Right. Which, I think I've seen to be true. Man, we went a few places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very good. So coming back to this book, the Rational Optimist, right? It's I think it's a good read. I like it in the sense that it looks at example after example after example where differing groups or differing individuals, right, pursuing that type of Adam Smith-like specialization, right, achieve advantages for themselves and for others through this transaction or trade idea, right? So if you're better at X and I'm better at Y, right, it's more beneficial for each of us to spend our time for you doing X and me doing Y, right? And out of the abundance of our labor, trade on that, right? And you'll have what you need from the Y, and I'll have what I need from the X, right? We can kind of move along, right? And I think it's such a simple idea, but such a powerful one in the way it kind of move things forward, right? For a lot of people, right? So you can make the argument that both individuals and societies writ large should really focus on, what you're good at, right? And thinking about what you're good at is more often than not necessarily things that are, I think sometimes we have this idea of, follow your passion, and the suggestion is everybody's going to play piano or become a sculptor, right? Well, that probably, I think very few, selectively few people are truly, as a lifelong dedication, able to excel at either piano or sculpturing, right? So I think there's more of an even distribution of talents at any moment, right? Capable of manifesting itself in a variety of different ways, right? To kind of the benefit of the individual and otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. It's and I think what you're speaking to is, in any given day, if you didn't have the help of other people, there would be so many things that you would have to attack.
Sure.
You would only give a smaller piece of your time, right, to all those different things. Whereas when you have people that take care of the food you eat, the place you sleep, all the needs that you have, you're able to then use that free time to then pursue something else, right?
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I mean, I think, who said it? I think it was like this NYU professor was saying, all the people who tell you to follow your passion are rich guys who made money selling oil and like diapers or some shit.
Yeah.
So, there are guys who were gals,
Which
whatever.
was their passion? No, probably not.
No.
Yeah.
And, Naval talks about this, and he essentially says, the first thing you need to do is become rich. All right. You need to create enough capital for yourself that then you give yourself enough time to take a risk, right? Following your passion is risky. Living in New York City and trying to get to Carnegie Hall is risky, right? Versus being a banker or something, right? And there's different levels of risks if you want to get to this, and different levels of work too, right? Because every time you want to push the limit, right, you need to absorb all the knowledge to some degree that's available today in order to push that forward, right? So, but yeah, follow your passion. I think it sounds good, but I think the first thing you want to do is make enough money so you can really follow your passion, because this is part of the issue, right? Is let's say you were to follow your passion, right, and let's throw a passion out there, sculpting. Okay, let's say you're a really good sculptor and you get commissioned, right, to make a sculpture, and in your mind you've been dreaming of this like this perfect like bird sculpture, right? But the guy who's commissioning, or the girl or whoever the fuck is commissioning that sculpture, I hate birds, man. I don't want bird sculpture. You're like, fuck, all right, so what if it's like a, penguin or something? Oh, I love penguin. So you're spending all your time when you're passionate. Right? So, but let's play a different scenario, right? Let's say you become like a banker or like something, sell toothpicks to every store in America, right? And you make an absorbent amount of money, and then you can buy that slab of marble or whatever the fuck you want to cut into, and you make the sexiest bird ever, right? So, I mean, on a timeline perspective, I don't know which one is more efficient. I think that's up to you, right? Whether you work your way up.
I mean, it is a good question. I mean, in that scenario, you can make the argument is that the time you've had to put in to apply yourself to become that banker, right?
Right.
Did that take away from the developmental time where, again, commission client X doesn't like birds, right? But you are still actively engaged in the act of sculpting, right? And
sure,
that's a developing skill set, right?
Yeah.
One is, no, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting where to be a good banker, you work how many hours a week?
Probably like 70.
Okay. And to be a good sculptor, you need to put in how many hours, would you say?
Yeah, but this is the problem with that argument.
Okay.
Because, like, this is the issue I've always seen. Like,
sure.
I came from an educational background, going to architecture school, and everyone shares a common studio. So when you go to the studio, you'll see the studio rats there with you, and it's maybe 1% to 3%, depending on the school, but of people that are there constantly on the weekends doing all this kind of stuff, right? And they're just so impassioned by it, and they're working really hard to whatever, be the best architect they can be, right? God, this is one creaky ass chair. But I think there's some people say, oh, like, it's my passion, I'm just not doing it, and you're sitting with them at a club or on a restaurant on the weekend shooting the shit, when it's like, if let's say your plan is to get rich and then be a sculptor. Every second you're not doing whatever you need to do for your job, you should go and do your passion. Fuck going and eating at restaurants, drinking with buddies and all that. Then you're not really passionate about it, Because sure, networking, hanging out with friends, all that stuff's fun, but you have to sacrifice stuff to get somewhere. And if you know that your sacrifice is, I'm a banker so that I can be a sculptor, and then why wouldn't you spend your free time doing your passion than doing what your day job is, right?
Interesting.
And maybe, look, people also, if it's your passion, it doesn't mean it necessarily needs to encompass your whole life and everything, or become professional, or people to look at you and think, oh, that's the best sculptor that ever was, right? But I don't know. I think there's enough time in the day that you can give up something. Like, if some people will watch Netflix 5 hours a day and then say that they don't have enough time to do stuff or go out with their friends and all that, there's an issue with that. And then just being honest with yourself.
Sure.
What you can produce, how much time you have.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, I mean, I don't know. I think the first goal is buy yourself time. And the only way you really do that is by making some form of capital, and then having a real conversation with yourself of how much capital do I need to be able to do what I love to do. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be different for different types of people. I mean, you could follow your passion, maybe get lucky, right? But some people win the lottery too. And I mean, if you're, I don't know, it's a personal thing, right? Everyone's different, right? If you come from money, it's different. You can probably just be a fucking painter all day, just paint in a studio, because you don't have to worry about where you're sleeping, food.
But the question still is, would that be what you're best at, right? I don't know.
Being the banker?
No, meaning it sometimes goes hand in hand, wherein if you're born into money, you have more time to pursue recreations that are closer to the arts, right?
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean, right,
Every rich person is going to be
right, right.
So
you may have more exposure to,
Right.
but I don't know if it's still you know what you're best at in terms of.
So I think the biggest advantage that, and I think you'll see this because I think the statistic is 80% of billionaires are self-made.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a big advantage to desire, right? And we were saying earlier, desire is making a sacrifice of happiness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to see my friends. I'm not going to watch the latest Netflix. I'm not going to do the things that I love because there's something else I love more,
Mm-hmm.
or I know my future self will love more than where I am currently,
Sure.
right? So if you have somebody that comes from nothing, and they see where they could go,
Mm-hmm.
there's some desire there. They already have nothing, right? So the question is, I think they're willing to give up more to get somewhere else.
Okay. Good.
Right? No,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, if you have more to lose also,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if you put yourself into the art and it fails, and you can always go hang out with, go live at your parents or go get a job with somebody or whatever, versus having, burning the ships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who was it? Cortez that, landed on North America, and his men got off the boats and said, in order for them to fight truly for their lives, they burned their own ships.
Mm-hmm. Is that a true story?
Yeah, I think it's true.
Yeah. All right.
Why was it? Have you heard otherwise?
No. I'm just curious. I mean, the idea of burning a ship is quite it's quite a decision. That's for sure.
Well, I guess if your goal is to conquer a new
Yeah.
world, right? And you always have a back door.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking about the economic value of a ship to the empire that kind of sent you out there, right? I don't know how appreciated it would be. I mean, think of within any navy of any sort where it's like, sitting back at home at court and we funded your expedition, we can't help but feel a certain degree of disappointment that you kind of destroyed something which had a 30 to 40 year utility.
Right.
I don't know. I throw that out there. But anyway.
Yeah. No. That's interesting. Maybe it's in the same way that, if in modern warfare,
Mm-hmm.
you don't leave technology behind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, something happens, you retreat, but you've got a Humvee that's sitting there with technology that will help the adversary, whatever, get ahead.
Absolutely. But this scenario is slightly different. Yeah. But, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thanks for watching. More episodes are available here on this platform and other main platforms where podcasts are heard. Thanks for drinking with us. Stay hungry. Stay foolish.